Ms. Bilo, lovely to have you back. Good to see you again. I wanted to talk to you briefly about, to start, about the 6 sites that were announced on federal lands. They're in Dartmouth, Longueuil, Quebec, Ottawa, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Edmonton. Each of those sites were previously owned by the Canada Lands Company, right? Do you know how long the Canada Lands Company had been working on each of those projects before they were, I guess, transferred to Build Canada Homes?
These are mostly on master plan communities, and I'm imagining a significant time. I've just joined the government on September 29th, so I don't have the history, but I'm imagining that doing a master plan community and getting those sites would require some time. I would call the attention as well for the model that we're also doing to finance. We're having $1.5 million to invest in those sites. So what we're bringing together, it's not only about the land, it's bringing the land together with the source of funds and to actually push for the modern methods of construction, which goes right in line to our mandate.
Okay, let's get into that then. Just to clarify, though, I've done a little research. Dartmouth has been about 11 years since Canada Lands Company got a hold of it. Longueuil, Quebec's been about 20 years since Canada Lands got a hold of it. Heron Road here in Ottawa has been 12 years in the works. The longest time period there has been actually just getting the federal government to dispose of the lands. The Downs, it's been 16 years, Winnipeg 5. The Edmonton project's been ongoing for 22 years, and there's still no homes built, of course. And so I guess what I want to point out is that none of these were raw or newly identified lands. They've all been in the works with CLC for years, sometimes decades. 4 of them were already zoned and effectively ready to go. And so Build Canada Homes, I guess your main intervention here has been procurement of financing. So I guess I'm wondering why we needed. Was it not possible for Canada Lands Company to have those tools as well, since it already existed as a federal agency?
We're just bringing, and Canada Lands, as the Prime Minister, when announced Build Canada Homes, did say that Canada Lands made a note of Canada Lands coming under the BCH. So we're going to work with the lands that are available at Canada Lands and other ones. The key is to have the land that is available to leverage that for public use together with the flexible tools that we have. So we are working with the Canada Lands, their expertise, their people, and we're doing exactly that.
But let's dig into that a little bit deeper then. So you also indicated that Build Canada Homes is going to free up federal lands and get them into the mix faster. And so I'm wondering, based on how long it took Canada Lands Company to get these lands out of the federal government's hands, what specifically will Build Canada Homes do differently so the process doesn't take 10 years?
We would work on the rezoning and development. Obviously, the government is the one that has to make the lands available for us, and the goal, maybe Janet can jump in because Housing and Infrastructure is leading that conversation.
No, actually, that's a good point, though. You're going to work on the zoning. You're a former city councillor. You understand the long, painful, outrageously expensive process. The zoning approval and development charges and stuff can be, particularly in Toronto. Let's not kid ourselves. So how are you going to speed up that process with municipalities?
The conversations that we're having, and that's why the benefit of Build Canada Homes, for an example, with the City of Ottawa, we've been able to actually get an implementation table that is going to speed the approval of our lands, that is going to get development charges waived on our lands. Same thing with Halifax. And again, because we're bringing these tools together, because we are at the table with the provinces.
Are you going to do that city by city? Like I realize, you've done something like that with Ottawa, but there's a lot of cities in this country. You're going to do it city by city?
We are going to, the way that we develop our lands is going to be in partnerships with the communities where we operate, and we want governments to come to the table, absolutely.
You're familiar with Tricon's project at Canary Landing in Toronto. I know you were part of the approvals process for that. I'm sure you're aware that the timelines for that project were about 5 or 6 years. It's done. I toured it last year. It's amazing. 30% of the units are affordable and deep. I know you were, and so I guess I'm wondering why a federal agency, would be needed to do what a private corporation did with the support of the provincial government. basically gave them the land for a long-term lease and got out of the way. And the private corporation got it done under an agreement that they make 30% of the units affordable super fast. How?
That is exactly what Build Canada Homes is going to do it. That is done through IO. It was done through Infrastructure Ontario on provincial land with the City of Toronto and financing from the federal government. This is what Build Canada Homes is actually bringing. We are bringing the federal lands together with the financing that we control as well, and allowing and partner with developers like you're doing to speed up and do developments like you're talking about in 5 years.
I don't have any time left, but if you can provide us a detail how you're going to actually speed things up with cities, that'd be great.
Exactly like I did it with the Tricon when I was at the city.
We'll get back into it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to. I actually want to talk to you about a couple of specific things now. I understand that you actually have a call coming up with an organization that I had the opportunity to visit while I was in Calgary on the weekend. It's called the Calgary Drop-In Centre. And I went for a visit. Truly an amazing organization. What I particularly love about what they're doing is they are aggressively working to find clients permanent housing as opposed to just constantly cycling through the shelter system. I really admire people that recognize that the job ultimately is to put themselves out of business if they can, and that's their effort. So I know that you have a call or a meeting planned with them. And if I could take an opportunity just to say, I hope that call goes very, very well, and you find a way to work with them, and maybe we can help other shelters, operate in a similar kind of way. So I'll just throw that out there. But there's another project specifically that I'd like to mention to you, and I don't often do this, but I think it represents the possibility of a model that can help housing and another organization. You're probably familiar with a couple of different legions across the country that have redeveloped. Sault Ste. Marie is a good example. There's one in Toronto, I know, City of Calgary. There's a couple out there. In my riding of Parry Sound Muskoka, there's a very small community called Bala. It's tiny, but they have a 75-year-old legion that is well past its best before date. And its president just so happens to be Dennis Mills, a former Liberal member of Parliament. And we get along famously. They are working very hard to redevelop that Legion site in a little place like Bala with 125 units of housing, much of which will be affordable. And of course, they've been ready to go. The municipality was all on board. They got things done quickly, which always doesn't happen. They submitted things to, I guess, to Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and now it's, I guess, bumped over to your agency. And they're not looking for huge grants, of course, because these things actually generate some revenue. They're looking for affordable financing, and this is one of the tools that I'm told you have available to you. So I would love to, encourage you specifically to look at this Bala Legion project. But I'm wondering, though, if you'd be interested in looking at something more broadly with Dominion Command. A lot of these legions, especially in rural communities, which I think has been largely neglected on the housing file for the last 10 years, have old legions and dwindling membership and old buildings that are in a state of disrepair. And I see this as an opportunity not just to create new housing, but to save the Legion as well. And I'm wondering if you'd be interested in looking at a model like that works collaboratively to redevelop Legions and provide thousands of housing units at the same time without huge grants.
Absolutely. That is exactly the models that the flexibility that we have at Build Canada Homes allow us to work with organizations like that, like Legions, which is ideal because they come with land as well. We know that the different components of the cost of a housing, and the more we can dip into that, take out the land costs, take out taxes costs, take out the financing costs, that's how you create the affordability. So when you have a program that is Legions or the United Church, for example, years ago, created their own corporation to develop their own lands. This is the kind of things that now we can partner with and we can support as well. We are seeing as well very interesting proposals coming to us. So, for example, small rural municipalities getting together with their own lands and kind of creating then going with one of the development managers to come together because it's hard for a smaller municipality, and so creating that capacity. And again, this is the flexibility that Build Canada Homes brings to the table, to work with those models, to give the certainty to those models, because we have flexible tools. We're not a program. We're not just a grant or a financing. We can come at it in different ways and foster those partnerships and those bigger models.
We're almost out of time, so I have another quick question for you. If you can you give me a sense of timelines for organizations like the Bala Legion, which have submitted their proposal to your office? What kind of timelines are we looking for? What should we expect in terms of response to the Bala Legion?
So we do a very initial response. We just set up at the end of November. The moment that the application, the proposal is complete, so for example, right now we have about 400 proposals in progress. So the organization started and they haven't completed the submission. One is completed submission. Our goal is to, within between 30 and 60 days, to start engaging with the proponent. Now, sometimes what we're finding as well is that we might not be able to engage exactly the way that they're coming to us, and we initiate the dialogue and actually put on the table, maybe if you look at it in a different way, maybe if we look at it, maybe we can't come with such a big financing, maybe we do more of a bridge loan or a grant, and we try to work with the proponent to unlock the project and make the project work.
This is my official invitation to Bala. Come visit us.
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. 5
Lucky
minutes.
you, I get to go again. Ms. Bala, during the election campaign, the Prime Minister talked about cutting development charges off. He seemed to understand that local government charges and fees are a major impediment to getting homes built and to making sure that they are a little bit cheaper for consumers to purchase. Is Build Canada Homes involved in any part of that? We haven't heard anything more about it since then, so I'm wondering if your agency is going to be part of that process. Is that include part of your mandate?
No, that's not part of our mandate.
Okay, so
and we find it quite different actually across the country.
It is. I'm sure why it hasn't been dealt with yet. But I'm wondering though, like in Toronto as an example, you have lots of experience there, having been a councillor. The City of Toronto got their Housing Accelerator Fund, $470 million, biggest one in the country. Agreed to a number of things, not the least of which was 6 plexes as of right all across the city. They've come back and made them legal in 9 of the 25 wards, and the penalty was to lose $10 million of that funding, so about 2%. So we know, though, that starts have basically gone off a cliff in larger cities like the GTA and the Lower Mainland. So is there anything specifically that your agency will be doing in partnership with the private sector in those outrageously expensive markets to get them building again? I'm worried they're starting to lay people off.
We're working with many nonprofit organizations and private sectors in those markets, being the GTA or in BC as well. We're working not only at the government level, but directly with private sector and nonprofit sector to unlock some of those projects. Again, because we can bring some flexibility, it is important to unlock some of those projects. I would like to go faster, but honestly, I need this budget to pass because without the money,
but what specifically?
I cannot unlock those projects.
Can you give me an example of what you're doing with a private sector developer to? I mean, it's math, right? Simple math. What are you doing? Give me an example of a private sector developer that you're working with. What are you doing to make the math work?
A bridge loan.
Okay, bridge loan.
So, for example, we've had projects where the rents are coming down. The bond rate, which is what it's used, it's been very, very volatile, has increased. The math doesn't work anymore. So by creating, in a couple of cases, a bridge loan, we're able to get shovels on the ground on those projects, and that unlocks the project.
And that's for rental projects specifically?
These that we're working on, this was for rental projects as well.
And then anything in terms of home ownership?
We're working on a couple of things on home ownership. I hope that you'll be able to see. I can't divulge. It's still confidential, commercial confidential information.
I must admit, the minister was here. We talked to him about all the work that is going on. He raves about your organization and how you're getting rentals built and all that kind of stuff. And I don't doubt that that's important. And I think the non-market supply is low as well, and that's good that you're doing that. But But it feels very much like it's happening at the expense of market housing and ownership. Home ownership is something that I think Canadians still aspire to. And if, in fact, the root cause of the challenges there does lie with the cost and the timelines of government in the process, we know that in Ontario, about 30% of the cost of the average home is government. And so if we can't get those costs down, how do we get people back into home ownership?
Tell you, as somebody that came now in the last few years from the private sector, is a mixture of things that make the cost of housing. It is the price of landing, and that includes zoning restrictions sometimes. It is the interest rates that went up. It is the fact that the investor is not there to buy the condo, and it's very hard to get end users to buy a condo in those markets and wait for it for 5 or 7 years. And it's the way that we finance the condominiums. There's many things. There's definitely government fees. There's the timing of approvals. There's a series of things. And when I say that there's not one order of government or one sector that can solve this alone, it is partnerships, and it is bringing every tools to the table, is because that is why I'm so proud, to be honest with you, to be working with Build Canada Homes, because for so many years there was a disconnect in having so much federal land available, the financial tools, and the power to bring partners to the table, and we didn't make use of that. And I think that this is a tool, is part of the solution. It won't solve the housing, but it's a big part of the solution, and it can be a catalyst as well for modern methods of construction.
I just want to say I appreciate your private sector experience, and I hope you really do bring that to bear with this agency, and we do see some results, because, as I'm sure you're aware, the crisis is now, not 5 years from now. So thanks for that.
Aitchison,